way, and our sun will be in alignment, and they will shine a light through one of these holes. And there is, when you go into the king's chamber, and I don't remember which wall it's on. You have to catch me there on direction. I think it's on the east wall, but I may be incorrect. If you ever go there, look on the wall in the king's chamber, and you'll find the air vents. You can't see any light coming through them. You have to feel around for them. As I remember, it's a small hole. It's probably 3 or 4 inches in diameter, and it extends all the way up to the surface of the pyramid, and that's what they're talking about. You could probably, once you've found the location in the King's Pyramid exactly of where that air hole is, then you could probably plot astrologically at some point whenever the central sun of the Milky Way and our central sun line up and could shine through that hole, then you'd probably figure out some rather interesting stuff. And if you could learn about the geometry of the pyramid and find the numbers from that the data used to build the pyramid apparently speaks of future predictions. The pyramids were not built by 100,000 Nubian slaves rolling the stones over blocks. The people of those time, the ancient ancestors, our ancient ancestors from the Illyrian area, used spiritual powers actually to build the pyramid, telekinetic forces. In other words, the ability for the mind to move matter. That was the main way that the pyramid was built. If you have ever or get the opportunity to climb inside the Great Pyramid, you'll agree with that quickly, as once you see the size of the stones and the way it's put together, it's hard to imagine how anyone could actually build this thing out of blocks with normal manpower. Semjase came to, and Quetzal both suggested to Billy also on this contact that at their last contact where they'd set the ship down, apparently the local army had been out there following them, and there was helicopters in the area examining the area, so apparently they knew where the saucer was setting down for that contact, and they were out there with their devices trying to detect any radiation on the ground and so forth where the ship was set down. So they were a little surprised that their contacts were being picked up on, and they were again going to have to become more secret about what they're doing. Apparently maybe some of these little Volkswagens with little parabolic screens on them could be government-type people following them, just trying to pinpoint the location where Billy goes to and to find out whatever they could. There's another attempt on Billy's life. This is the second one that I know of. He wasn't particularly concerned about this, and as a matter of fact, Semjase had to kind of wrestle the information out of him to find out about it. And he says, well, it really wasn't a big thing, that he had dreamed and seen a future vision of this actually happening 3 times. So he felt quite well warned. And he knew exactly who was going to come and when, and he felt was very comfortable that his dream was accurate, so he wore a metal plate under his clothes, and when he got shot, it was just a small little .22 again, and it happened to hit him right in the pocket in his chest, or his agenda book, he calls it. And there's a picture in Billy's photo journal of the little agenda book and the shell that hit him in the pocket, and the shell just fell in his pocket. And but he wasn't caused any damage, and he actually was not even afraid. Actually, I think he felt pretty good that he was able to foresee it and protect himself. Okay, we move up to the 54th contact now, which was on June 8th, a Tuesday in 1976. A few little interesting things were brought out there. Semjase gave a demonstration for the whole house the night before this contact, and apparently she had several of their little telemeter devices. These are little small saucers that are unmanned. They're remotes that fly around the planet all the time collecting information about our languages and what's going on in different places of the world. Apparently she had 2 or 3 beamships and a few telemeter devices that hovered over Billy's house, and the whole household got to come out and watch as they floated around. Must have been very exciting. And she noticed that there was 2 people visiting in the house from Germany that she was not aware of. And she commented to Billy that she had also recorded their brain patterns in the ship so she would know who they were in the future. I mentioned on an earlier tape that Billy was rejoined with Ascot when he went on a trip with the Pleiadians to the Great Spacer, and on that picture which is circulated around, there's a lot of confusion about what looks to be her earlobes, and many people think it's just hair, and I thought I'd clear that up. They are earlobes. It is definitely earlobes that Ascot's people, who are called Timmers, They're from the Dal universe, a separate universe from ours. That Asket's earlobes not only are lower, but they come down almost to the bottom of the jawbone, and they're forward set on the face. They're not as far back as our earlobes are. They're a little closer to the front. So when you look at that picture, it's a little deceiving because she has white hair, and it kind of blends in since the picture's not real sharp. It blends in and looks like it could possibly be her hair, but it is not. It is her earlobes. Billy had a cute little question about, do the size of earlobes have anything to do with intelligence? And she kind of laughs, says, of course not. If it did, consider that the most intelligent thing on earth would be a jackrabbit. Semjase has blue eyes, by the way, and does use, I guess we'd call it eyeliner. She uses some makeup and remarked that most of the Pleiadian women use some form of makeup, we'd call it, to, like, add to their general looks. They don't use very much, but they are into some sort of, especially eyeshadowing. Semjase lives on a planet called Ira in the system of Tegeta. She has concerned herself on Earth, she says, for about 72 years, but she's only been on Earth actually for 4 years physically. So those previous years were all mostly in research. Currently, the Pleiadians, there was about 114 of them visiting Earth at the time. That number can vary from 50 to 300. They have 3 bases on Earth. One's in Switzerland. At the time, in the contact notes, she says she couldn't tell Billy where the others are at, but Billy told me later on he learned that one was in Russia, and they had built one underground in the southwestern part of the United States, but abandoned that one in 1981. And there was a lot of activity in the North Sea. It was never clear if they were just doing something there or they actually had a base under the water there somehow. There, at that time, were 7 other extraterrestrial bases on Earth, and probably still are, possibly might be some more now. She says they all know each other. They are all familiar with what each other is doing, and they are all friendly towards one another, so that's a good sign. Another question about spiritual evolution. Billy wanted to know if animals in nature evolve just like people do. And she says, no, it's different. That animals do not strive for perfection. That animals are actually a form of spirit created by creation, which really only strive for the evolution of nature itself. She calls within a set order, is how she explained it. What that actually means is the human being strives for perfection and ultimately has the ability to join in with creation itself. Animals do not. They have kind of a limit on how far that they can evolve. And their evolution isn't based on growing wisdom like ours is. Instead, it's more like they strive for instinct development. And also I know their life cycle is different. Billy explained to me once, and I'll go more into the life cycles on the other tapes of creation when we get to it. But in nature, animals have a fixed turnaround period when they go through. Like we die and pass on and go to the fine matter world, and when we come back is determined by other factors, which I'll get into later. But the animal world is controlled. It's kind of on a calculated numbering system. They always come back the same number of years. So it's more of a controlled, instinctive system with animals. Animals, again, are not part of the human evolution. The human spirit form did not evolve out of the animal world. Creation created the animals and then all of the nature spirit forms separately from the human spirit forms. At such a time on the planet when the planet was evolved enough for human life form to be here, the human spirit form was created and evolved out of a different level of intelligence for different reasons and to operate in a different manner, like I said. It's a wisdom system, which I'll explain more about later on. So we did not evolve out of any animals or any form of nature. There's confusion about that because anthropologists are always trying to relate us somehow, that missing link, to the monkeys and so forth, which is not true. As I explained to you earlier, quite a few of the unusual monkey types actually were created out of experiments from our early ancestors who were using human genetics and mixing it with animals, and that's where most of the monkey types actually came from, including the Bigfoot sort of thing. Billy asked how their radios work. If it was, just dial in like we do, but how do they communicate, like from planet to planet? And if they're a long ways away, radio waves are far too slow to get an immediate answer. It could take thousands of years to get an answer, as slow as radio waves are. She says, well, our radios don't operate in normal space. We send our messages through hyperspace, much like we do the ships. they actually attach their message, whatever it is, to particles that we call, she says, they're similar to the particles that we call tachyon particles. And these particles can accelerate in hyperspace at speeds way beyond the speed of light and almost instantaneously reappear at some other location in the galaxy. So they have learned how to build radios which actually send messages through the hyperspace so they can hear each other immediately at different parts of the galaxy. There were some questions on gravity, like what is it, can we do it, and what could you explain about that? And it kind of caught her off guard, because at first she says, well, I'm not allowed to talk about that. That again, you know, that we see you so far out of balance with your technical development that we are not really interested in supplying you information that you don't need. You don't need to know about anti-gravity yet, because the last thing you need to do is get off your planet. You need to spend more time with your social development. But she offered a few insights into that. She says it is electromagnetical in nature. There are two unitary but contrary forces. And here's kind of a key phrase. She says that the Earth generates the gravity. Now, generates may be a key here. It's the cause of the gravity, she says, also can be found in the self-warmth of the planet and the cold of space. So there's something to do with this, the difference in temperature between the coldness of space and the warmth of our atmosphere that also contributes to the gravity itself. She says another contributing factor is the core of the planet, which is very dense. And that's also a contributing factor. So there are several things involved here in the creation of the gravity. But the planet is generating it. Temperature has something to do with it. Mass has something to do with it. I think that probably in different private circles here on our planet, people have probably already kind of figured that out. And it would be interesting to see if their explanation falls in line with Billy's notes. Among other questions was about the Pleiadians themselves. She remarked that the Pleiadians live in a solar system of 9 planets. We believe that ours has 9, but later on they're going to tell us that there's actually 11. There's 2 kind of renegade planets far out floating around that we hadn't discovered yet. But there's 9 planets in their solar system. On the planet Ira, which is the planet that Semjase comes from, there are approximately 400 million people living on that planet. She says when her early ancestors had come to Earth on several occasions, the ancient Lyrians and so, they were familiar with Earth. And when they left Earth and returned back to their own world, at a certain point, they fled out into the world themselves, and they found a planet very similar to Earth, just like it. The planet Ira has 365 1/4 days. A day is 23 hours and 59.4 seconds long, which is pretty amazing that it rotates that accurately to Earth. The Pleiadian word for a day is musal, M-U-S-A-L. A second, a word for a part second, they call it, is odur, O-D-U-R. A year is 13 months long with a compensation time every 23 years, so they're doing a little different calendar than we are. The word for a month is an asar, A-S-A-R. Their atmosphere is 70 to 75% nitrates, 25 to 29% oxygen, and about 1% rare gases like carbon dioxide and argon. Argon, excuse me, not Aragon, that's a ballroom someplace. Argon. Ira has a little higher oxygen content. It's 32.4%, higher than the other planets. Their surface gravity is 1.003. Density is 5.521. Axis inclination is 22.99 degrees. The equatorial diameter is 12,749 kilometers, and their planet is moving through space at 11.19 kilometers a second. So there's some statistics for the astronomy types, if you want to do some comparison there. To the planet Earth. She says compared to our calendar, that she was born actually on February 7th. That was Semjase's birth date. She says the Pleiadians are very much into astrology, but they know far more about it, and their astrology is far more accurate. That there is definitely something to the concept that the radiations put out by planets do affect life. There's no doubt about it. She just commented that Earth astrology is not very accurate at this point, and more has to be learned about how these radiations actually affect the human spirit. Another interesting subject that was brought up at the 55th contact Monday, that was on June 14th. Semjase has a brother and a sister. Her sister's name is Pleia, P-L-E-J-A, and her brother's name is Yukata, which sounds kind of Japanese. It's Y-U-K-A-T-A. Now, again, let me reiterate, I don't believe any of these names of planets or anything, because it doesn't make any sense that they would all have the sameness of sound. Even on our own planet Earth, you go from one language to the other, and